Okay, tell me.
Call to order.
No, Brett's not here, is he? No, Brett's not here.
He's not, okay. I had hoped he
No,
said he might come.
You can't miss him. He's like 6'10".
Oh, is he really? Oh, I've seen him sitting down, so I didn't know how tall he was.
Great.
All right. Jan, would you, we have a proposal from the owner of the Pine Street property. Would you give us a report on
Wait,
that?
is,
Do the notes first.
Oh, forgive me, yes. Approval of the minutes. Anyone have any comments, changes?
Very nice minutes.
Move
approval.
Second,
Yeah,
are you seconding?
second.
Mills, second. Jan,
wait, hold on, that's not on the agenda though.
what? Approve the minutes?
No, I'm sorry, we're doing the minutes.
We're doing the
Sorry,
minutes.
I, Patrick, sorry.
Jan?
Hi, Jan.
Hi,
Hi,
Mark.
Bruce. Mark, you're on mute.
Hi, Liz.
Oh,
No, that's why I stay on mute. It's okay. He's local.
yeah.
Okay.
Just stick your thumb up.
We are, our consultant is going to be here in a few minutes. So we're going to skip to other business and take care of a few small things that have happened. And that we're going to run through and start with Jan, on Pine Street.
Jan, we had that meeting on Tuesday, so we had time to put it on the agenda. And frankly, the Stockbridge Housing Authority asked us to give them a little time to consider some of the things. So I'm not sure there's anything to report or even that's appropriate to talk about it now. I'd be happy to brief you on the meeting privately, but in public session, it should be on the agenda if we're going to talk about it.
The reason I called on her is not to talk about the housing, but to talk about the proposal we received from the owner.
We didn't get a proposal.
We did.
Actually, I was there. We did not get a proposal. The meeting was,
Patrick, I received one. And I distributed it to everybody.
yeah.
Was that the note from
Yeah.
the building owner?
Yes. Everyone, we should acknowledge that we have received a proposal from the building owner to work with him to create housing in that building. And we need to just acknowledge we'd received that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this the $2,000 needed for the architect?
And he proposed that we contribute $2,000 to him.
Yeah.
But he didn't include any proposal about how we would work together or anything other than we would contribute. He asked us to contribute money.
Right, but we can't take action on that today anyway.
No.
So you already distributed
We've
I think we should be
distributed,
cautious not to talk about things that are not on the agenda unless they occurred within 2 days of the posting of the agenda, because the law says that if there's a late development, such as the letter that we received or a letter I just received from Construct, if there's a late development, we can reasonably add it to the agenda if it's within 48 hours. That's all I'm saying.
okay,
Well, this came in on Sunday, so that it exceeds the 48-hour time frame.
Yeah.
all right. We have it, it will be on the agenda next time. CPC, Patrick, you are on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't really get even into the merits of the proposal. There was some concern that we didn't have a grant agreement in place and that we hadn't they hadn't received our annual report before the start of the meeting. So do we have the grant agreement in place now?
You don't, because we haven't received it, but I didn't even know that was an issue. What I was told was the issue was that we needed to do our annual report.
Okay, so I would like us to sign the standard grant agreement that every other grant recipient gets from the town. We don't need to spend any money on independent counsel reviewing it. And frankly, the reviews that have
I
been
don't think
submitted,
we
I've not
asked
done.
anybody to do that.
I saw a thread from Erica that involved what she considered to be nits on changes from a thread that
came from
ended
me.
October. Oh, that was from you, not the lawyer.
No,
All right. We're going to make zero progress on that. I think we need to get our grant agreement in place. I think we should sign it as is.
okay, that's fine. You
Everyone all right with
want to
that?
vote? You want to vote on that?
I don't know that we need a vote. I just feel like before next Thursday, when we have the CPC meeting, or whatever day it is, we better have that grant agreement there because we're going to get not even considered if we don't.
It's very helpful to know these things.
I know, but
Who
not,
has the grant agreement? Is this some standard document?
it came up, I heard the first thing of it at the CPC meeting, but there had been a back and forth. They went out to everybody in July and it's, now the end of January. So I'm just saying we need to have the grant agreement in place. The annual report I thought was fine. There was some discussion about whether it needed more detail at the CPC and I pointed out that all the bills go through Erica. So it's not like there's an independent checkbook. I think that on the annual report, we're now fine.
In my conversation with Erica, she gave me a lot of direction on how to revise it.
Okay.
And I'm prepared to do that tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Okay, Mark, you want to fill us in on very quickly on One Stop?
Yeah, in the last meeting, I talked about the state's one-stop program for grant proposals for housing and economic development. And at that time, when I was reviewing it, it was for sort of last year. And they were saying that sometime soon, they would post the current dates for this calendar year and for the fiscal year 2026, and they have done that. And it is now posted. I sent a link to all the members of the committee earlier today to the One Stop main page so you can see. But the fiscal 26 round of One Stop has opened as of January 24th. And some of the key dates are expressions of interest can be submitted anytime now. A deadline for expressions of interest is March 26th. So if we have anything we want to do in relation to any of the projects we're considering, we have a couple of months to get an expression of interest in. And then they respond to your expression of interest and give you some guidance as to whether you have a good proposal and how you might fix it up. And then you can move on to the full application for the grant. And they review that over the course of the spring and summer, and in September or October, they'll announce the awards. So anyway, the calendar is up, and there's also some informational webinars that they offer for people that want to learn about One Stop. February 3rd and 5th, there are a couple of webinars, and there's some other pre-recorded ones. And again, you can find all of this stuff following the link that I sent. And at some point, we should decide as a group what expressions of interest we might want to pursue. And again, they've described that as a fairly simple process with a paragraph or two.
What's the
about what you
deadline
want
for
to
the
do.
expression of interest?
Expression of interest begins the 24th
Of February?
of January.
It goes through.
And let's see.
think you said-
You said
Deadline,
March 26th, I think.
March 26th is the deadline for expression of interest. Yeah. So, we have
Little less than 2 months.
a little less than 2 months. And again, those are not burdensome to write up from my understanding, but, we have to decide what we want to do. So maybe at another meeting,
At our next meeting, I think,
we can devote some time to discussing it.
right.
And I can also lay out a little bit more of what specific grants we might pursue, because there's a bunch of different, the whole alphabet soup of state agencies. But one of the things about the expression of interest is they will get back to you with some comments on it and tell you, well, this should go to mass development, or this should go to, some other program. So you know where to send it.
Mhm.
They've reviewed it, and then you go into the process of doing the full grant, which, is pretty comprehensive. Michael Canales has done it successfully, I guess, a number of times. And so we have some in-house expertise on that, but we may need some additional help with it. I don't know, but we'll talk about it further. I just want to let everybody know the new dates are up, and it's, pretty soon we can start making our applications when we've decided where we want to go with
I
it.
think that next meeting, that'll be the major focus.
Yep. Great.
And also,
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
hopefully, we would, we're going to make some progress to get some help.
Some of these grants are planning grants and to decide, let's say you wanted to look at the Levon property, you had another name for it. This is Beaupre. Beaupre, this is the one on Route 7 that was the Berkshire Theater had. Let's say you had an interest in that, you might submit a grant proposal to say we need some planning funding to determine whether this is a suitable site. And instead of having to draw on our own resources, they might say, okay, that looks pretty promising. Here's $100,000 to do a study on that site. So we could get a lot of information about it as a possible site. That's just an example that some of this stuff is not necessarily bricks and mortar. It's helping you do the planning and deciding which,
Okay.
where we need help.
What I was referring to, though, is I think we would really be so helped by someone who's experienced in grant writing.
Yeah.
And helping us focus.
I don't know if the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission can help us on that, or who does these grants. We need to delve into that. I'll look into it.
Well, we have a new contact. I'd hoped actually that he was coming today. Is Brett Roberts, right?
It's coming in 2 weeks. He got the impression he didn't want him to come today.
I had a further conversation with him, but anyway.
Who is he?
He is, I'm not sure what his title is.
Senior housing planner at Berkshire Regional Planning.
Oh, well,
He
And
lives in Main Street.
great.
It's not
Great.
Yeah, he lives in Stockbridge, but he also is new, relatively new, and replaced the people who we worked with in the past unsuccessfully. So,
Okay. All right. Yeah.
and he seems to be very competent. We also, I think everybody knows, you have copies of the adverse possession.
Okay,
What's wrong with that?
Not on the agenda.
Not on the,
It's not that. I think the issues of legal issues are dealt with in executive session. And if you want to schedule an executive session of this board, you should do it. Other than that, I strongly encourage this board not to discuss this letter in public session.
Fine.
There's 3 reasons you can go into executive session. That one of them is litigation. And I think that's where we deal with this.
Okay, that's terrific because,
The only question that we may have to deal with in public session is legal representation, because I believe there's a time limit on response to that. And I would strongly encourage us to use town council because there's a bunch of issues around eminent domain and otherwise. I think on this one, we should use town council to represent our interests, not, because the town got the same letter that we got. So we're all going to be looking at it. And I don't want to be spending our money on litigation. We're already going to be dealing with it at the town level.
they charge us to.
They're, like I said, the same letter went to the town as went to us. They have to deal with it. We have to deal with it anyway.
I should.
I think it's a good idea for us to go into executive session and how we need to find some rules. We've never done that before.
Right, but we can't get the rules because we don't have access to town council because we're not using town council as our lawyer. This is like an example of where being part of the larger town structure this is like no man's land. I've only been in a couple executive sessions in 5 years, other than the unions, which has been a couple other ones, in 5 years on the select board. This is not easy stuff and it's easy to get it wrong. And it's not also general legal stuff that a general lawyer might know. This is basically specific to how municipalities have to work. And I just would strongly encourage us to not reinvent the wheel here and have separate legal representation. I think we should use Donna and we should use Michael and we should use town council.
We need to talk about that.
Let's talk about it now. We got the letter. It's within 2 days.
An executive session.
No,
What?
we're not talking, we're just talking about how to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, look at the letter came in within 2 days. So it passes the sniff test of too late to put on the agenda. So I'm happy to talk about what lawyer we should hire to help us right now if you want.
Okay, that's fine with me. I have a recommendation for someone who's very skilled.
And one little point of order. I don't
Yes.
know if our audience knows what we're actually referring to here. Okay, well, can I just state?
No.
We don't. Can't state what it is.
If,
I don't see why we should. We got a legal letter from that's related to the trust. You know, look at it. We're not litigator. We don't know how to deal with this stuff. It's not like we're trying to keep secrets. It's just we're gonna have to figure out this stuff, and we need legal counsel to be present as we figure it out. So I think we should limit the conversation to who should represent us.
And right now, we're only talking about whether or not to approve additional expenditures for our own council or whether to use the town's council
Or a third
who's-
council.
who's going to be dealing with the same issue. We're not
Or
talking
some-
about the issue itself.
That's right.
I don't think, Patrick, we have to decide that today,
Well, we only have 30 days to report.
From when the letter was written.
which is yesterday.
I don't think it was dated yesterday
No,
because
it
the
was
town got a
received-
copy
it was
last week.
It's
It
received.
was received yesterday by
No,
us,
it-
but
yeah.
it wasn't written yesterday.
Right, so we don't have as much time.
I personally would prefer, if we're going to talk about the whole issue, that we have this discussion in executive
I don't
session.
think we can have an executive session without the lawyer. That's the whole point. You don't go into executive session without getting advice from counsel.
Well, I talked to Donna today, and we can ask Donna, to have an executive session, have her be present, and discuss all our options. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think we need to discuss precisely who should represent us, because there are a myriad of issues.
No, there really aren't. The town gets letters all the time like this. This is not something that is atypical for a town to deal with. We have lawyers for a reason. We have a great legal team. And, you look at the issue of how we deal with Pine Street that we'll talk about the next meeting and whether it goes to the Stockbridge Housing Authority or not. You look at this, I called Donna for advice on that, on the Pine Street thing, Tuesday. She's like, I can't talk to you about this because you have separate counsel. I think there's a larger point here. We are in an independent trust, but we don't have to act like we're adversarial. And with all these town boards right now, CPC was a little bit of a, we need to play better with others. And one of the ways you do that is you just get folks whose job it is to manage these things, who get actually paid to do that job. People like Michael and people like Donna and people like Erica to kind of be assisting us. We're a volunteer board. I don't understand why we're kind of not being more part of the team. Part of the,
I mean, I feel very much that we're part of the team. I don't know. I speak to Erica all the time about what we need to do. I speak to Michael about our payment of bills and what, I don't know. But right now, this meeting is supposed to be about our sewer study.
all right.
So I just want to jump in for a second. We're only 3 days into the 30. The date of the letter is January 27th, so it's only 3 days ago. So we still have almost a full 30 days. We have 27 days to which to respond so that we can make a decision about whether to use town council, as Patrick is suggesting, or whether we want to allocate some money and go independently.
Or the third option, Bruce, is we don't respond, which is what I believe the town may do. We are under no obligation to respond. But once
That's
again,
true. If we want to respond, we just have to do it within 27 days from now.
Right.
We have options and we have time. So given it seems like we probably don't have complete unanimity right now. I can check with Donna, we can call a executive session and we can have a full discussion.
yeah, okay. I think that we have to have the discussion on what the legal strategy, who we're going to hire before we get into the executive session. I'm not comfortable going into executive session without a lawyer's advice on how to do it. So
why don't I-
schedule a meeting next week to talk about lawyers, that's fine, or we can just hash it out right now.
Why don't I talk to Donna,
Mhm.
which I do frequently.
How do you talk to Donna if she doesn't represent us? I'm just curious.
I call her up and she answers the phone. I ask her a question. She gives me an answer.
Okay,
So I don't think that we don't have to have an exclusive lawyer. Lawyers
I don't
are,
understand why we don't.
because they're very different issues and you need different kinds of expertise.
Yeah, I know that there's like 14 lawyers at that firm. I've dealt with them at DPU issues. Brian Bertram. You've got Chris Heap, who's a fantastic lawyer, who's dealing with the land use issues for DeSisto. You know, I mean, that was a 400-page document, extensive feedback. There is the expertise. Yeah.
And we're using it.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. I mean, I
Then
don't,
why are we using somebody else that costs us and the taxpayers money?
she hasn't billed us anything.
Who?
The woman who is.
I guarantee this will cost us money. This one that we're talking about right now.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely, that's why we should talk about what kind of lawyer we need.
Let's make a date to have our executive session or our discussion about
I mean,
this. and
do we have
let's
to
get
consult a lawyer in order to have an executive session? Because I've never been in one, so have you? No. Patrick, you have, so.
Every time I've ever been in one, the lawyer outlines the exact steps you have to go through to enter executive session, and then you could start in public session, then you go into executive session. We've always had help from town council every time I've been in one,
Okay,
you know?
so why don't I call Donna and get some help?
She's not our counsel at this.
But she's
point.
not our counsel.
She does advise us.
I'm telling you, what I heard 2 days ago, and I had this discussion when the letter showed up and I made the call, was we can't advise you, we're not your lawyer. So I don't know where you're coming from, Randy. I'm just saying that I think, look at,
So why don't I
and this
straighten
is
it out?
not, this is not the letter we received may have merit. To those of you who know what it is. This isn't an opinion on what is good or bad or whatever, ever. There's laws around this stuff. I'm a firm believer we follow the law. So don't feel like this is just simply about how we approach something which is municipal in nature. I think we need a municipal specialist law firm. Frankly, I know we have a good one. I've dealt with them for years. And I just, you know, I mean, the grant agreement, this issue, you know, it seems like it's a bit of a pattern in terms of us not optimizing our legal representation here, you know, maybe not.
So Patrick, if, according to what you said, if we can't approach Donna to talk to her about whether the town council versus an independent an independent counsel that we might hire is appropriate, how do you suggest that we get the answer to that question? It seems like a catch-22.
We had a vote, Bruce, we had a vote previously at the trust where we elected to hire a attorney of record that is not town council. We did that. I'm suggesting we reverse that, and then all of a sudden town council can represent us as they do every other department, board, individual. I get sued by one of these people, town council represents me, all right? The planning board gets sued or we rule on DeSisto one way or the other, town council represents me. Every issue before the town is represented by town council, except this board. This board is not, because we went another way, and I'm just.
Patrick, I'm going to stop this conversation. We will have an executive session. I will speak to town council about organizing it. We can consult town council. They can charge us. They can help us, just like other lawyers who have other expertise can also help us. So to be.
Okay.
Let's make a
decided.
date. Just make a date for executive. session.
I better, according to Patrick, we can't do anything
I don't know,
without
I'm not
asking.
the
I
lawyer.
didn't say that.
But that's what he just
I
said.
think we should, yeah. I don't want to represent what we have to do or not have to do. I'm not the lawyer. You know, I don't even play one on TV.
I'll call the lawyer and I will send a note around
All
to
right.
see if everybody can show up one way or another, and we will have an executive session. Got that one done. Thank you. All right. There is any other, Patrick, is there anything else you want to say or anybody?
Yeah, sure. We got another thing, which was, came in yesterday. So it's once again with the 2-day rule. I would like to go on the next agenda. It was a request from Construct for us to do rental support similar to what Lee, Lennox and Great Barrington have already agreed to with their CPC funds. So it would qualify for us. And, you know, with some of the challenges in funding at the federal level, they're looking at a backstop. They've had since 2020, 14 households in Stockbridge who are kind of low income renters. It's only available to people who have an emergency. But, you know, keeping people in their homes is at least as important as building new ones. And so I think we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
The thing from Construct.
Happy to do that. Very good. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, David, if you'd like to come up and thank you all for your attention to a longer other business than we anticipated. So I think Dave, you've appeared before everybody before.
Yep.
And we're very happy to have
You
you
wanna share?
again. Bruce,
Yes, I'm here.
you're in charge.
Oh, great. So I will freely acknowledge that while I have crawled all over the proposal that Dave and his colleagues from DPC have presented to us, that I am a lay person. And therefore I'm presenting this from a layperson's perspective, which is one of the reasons why I asked David to be present, so that someone who actually knows about engineering and whatnot can both correct me or criticize me when I say something wrong, and also to clarify any issues that may come before the trust or anyone that's present in the public meeting. So the proposal that DPC provided to us, which hopefully is going to be loaded as a shared document, is that what Mark and Patrick are attempting to do?
Yes, they are.
Well,
So
just a-
I'll sort of tee things up by summarizing. So in the interest of completeness, DPC has provided us a proposal that has three alternatives, and that within each of the three alternatives, there is an option for whether or not well, let me back up for a second. So there's three alternatives. So the first one is alternative one, and what this basically says is that even though this is a low pressure system that some people had questioned.
I'm sorry, what page is that, Bruce?
Page
It's-
five. Page
Page
five.
five.
Page five
Table
of the
one, right
document
here.
of the proposal. And it's on the screen now.
Good.
So
This is an achievement we should recognize.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark or Patrick. I'm not sure who gets the credit for this one.
So
Okay.
alternative one basically answers a primary question that we have had about the area, the sewage issue around the area of Glendale Middle Road. And alternative one has provided us a very positive answer, which is that there is capacity within the system as it exists now, including in the pump station that serves the current sewage system for the area. And the A and B on both on all three of these options is related to whether or not it only affects the existing 28 homes that are on Glendale Middle Road, or Dave has also done something to incorporate if each of the 28 homes wishes to consider an ADU and add a grinder pump on their property. So that basically doubles the number of grinder pumps within alternative one. And there is capacity for all of that. Alternative one does not really include anything related to anything that one might consider doing as development of the property. And I want to basically also state clearly that this is one step that the trust has pursued in order to determine whether or not a development is feasible on that Glendale Middle Road property that has been basically been given to the trust in the town of Stockbridge. It's not an answer to the question. We have no definitive plan or proposal that we're going to be putting forth. It's basically only to answer this one question that we had about the capacity for the sewage system. Alternative two basically is for A is again to incorporate the 28 existing homes on Glendale Middle Road. And then to add connections for 10 additional units or 20 bedrooms on top of that. Again, there is capacity for that to occur. And then 2B is basically to have the Glendale Middle Road, current Glendale Middle Road properties have their each one to add an additional grinder pump for any ADUs that they want to put on the property, as well as to include 30 units to be built on the property or 60 additional bedrooms. Option 3 is one that Dave and DPC put in there for completeness, but is really unnecessary, which with what it is essentially is to create a new parallel sewage system and new pump station to serve the whole area. And it really is not necessary. So the focus that we should basically be having is on alternative 2, which is 56 connections from the existing Glendale Middle Road owners, plus each one of them adding on a grinder pump for an ADU that they would choose to build on their property, plus either 2A, 10 housing units, or 2B, 30 housing units to be added to the property. And so that's really where I think everyone needs to focus, is on those middle 2 bars on that spreadsheet, which is 2A and 2B. Now, Dave, please tell me where I stepped in it and what I said wrong.
No, you did a good job.
And what is what's the benefit of doing alternative 3? Because obviously it's got to be better because it's almost triple the money, or is that just not?
No, I don't think it's really better. It's just, we kind of stacked things, right? So we wanted to make sure that the existing neighborhood system functions properly. The model that was developed using the manufacturer's software, it does, no surprise, right? It's been in operation for a while. Gentleman, I think it was Peter. Yeah. Peter at the last meeting asked to incorporate the what if scenario in the event that every property in the neighborhood has an accessory dwelling unit. Well, in all likelihood, maybe overly conservative. It was something that we talked about, so we kind of stacked that in. So the system still works very well with that consideration. And then when you get into alternative 2, it's like, okay, well, if the low pressure system works now for existing homes and future provisions for existing homes, does it work to accommodate the proposed development? Now, I don't really know what's potentially going to be built. So I assumed for the 20 and 60 bedroom units, there'd be 1 grinder pump for every 2 bedrooms. I think it's a pretty conservative, reasonable assumption. And under both of those scenarios, the hydraulics still work. And again, this system that was put in by the town back in the day, is the Cadillac of low pressure sewer systems with really good pumps. While the neighborhood has some challenges in getting across the river, the railroad to get to the neighborhood with the sewer, there really isn't a ton of elevation change in the neighborhood itself. And that's why the pumps have the additional capacity to continue to function.
Will the low pressure pumping go up that little hill that gets up onto 183? When you go under the railroad tracks, you got to go over the river, and then there's kind of a hill there.
It literally just goes right across the street and then dumps into a gravity system that's over there.
Okay.
And it's not a far run to that first pump station.
In terms of the chart here, looking at the 2A and 2B, the right-hand column, is that the projected cost per unit of housing to install? Is that what that means?
Yes. 2A, the connections, if 2A is proposed and and there's a development that only puts in 20 bedrooms or 10 units, the cost for each of those units would be $140,250. And if there's 30 units or 60 bedrooms, the cost per connection goes down to $65,683.
And what does that expenditure involve? What would be the how would that money be used?
So there's, with alternative two, there's no costs in the public infrastructure within the town right of way for the existing sewer. Those costs are strictly related to infrastructure on the subject parcel, so on the proposed development. I can't tell you exactly what that development would look like. For the purpose of the analysis and the model, I assumed a pretty spread out kind of development, if you will, with long sections of pipe serving each of the, I think lily pads was the term, each of the 3 or 4 pieces in that parcel that are potentially developable.
Some of those areas on that, some of those lily pads or places that are theoretically buildable are pretty far from Glendale Middle.
They are.
And the grinder pumps go, I think, 185 feet or something, the top of the line ones.
For the pressure, yep.
Yeah, so how do we get, say it's 300 feet from one of these units to the street?
Well, two different kind of dimensions there. So the 185 feet is actually a pressure. So divide that by 2.3, in PSI, it's the pressure rating. It's not
Not a distance?
It's not a distance.
Okay.
A couple of questions. So this doesn't include any of the creation of the road work that would be necessary, no utilities around, electric.
Correct.
Doesn't include the extensive work that would need to be done to actually the public infrastructure around water. And it doesn't include the build out for water to any of these units.
That's correct.
So
That's
all of
correct.
that expense is not even considered yet. And I think if anybody is still talking about doing 30 units up there, I want to try those gummies, but my sense is that, I think that, look, I think this is really helpful. I think we're in a big dig moment nationally. I was living in Boston when the big dig happened and it went over budget by billions of dollars. And what happened out here and in the rest of the state for years was that there was zero money coming to these towns because so much money had to make up the billions of dollars in shortfall. The state has 2 big projects, the Cape Cod Bridge and the Alston Interchange, all right? And that's almost $1 billion in infrastructure, maybe more, all right? And they're going to finish those projects. And I think if we have this sense that One Stop for Growth or any other public funding source right now in this political environment is going to bail us out to the tune of 2 million plus all the other millions for this, I frankly think it's not likely to happen, but I'm not an expert at this stuff. And I feel like, I feel like this is actually really helpful information because it frames how maybe we have to see how the state and federal government play out before we dream about, something of this scale and attracting this kind of money, because it's going to be really just read the papers.
Well, Patrick, that was exactly the reason why we basically approved the money for Dave and DPC to do this analysis for us so that we could get this one piece of information, knowing that there's still, as you listed them, significant other pieces of information that we need to get around water and the land prep and electricity and other utilities and so on and so forth, before we make any definitive decisions about whether or not this is a project that we're going to pursue. Mm-hmm. That's exactly why we did this. And I found it very helpful to get this information.
I have a question or two.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Can I ask a question or two?
Oh, yes, of course, Jen.
So looking at scenario 2A, my question is really the $1.4 million is, as you said, Dave, you've assumed that the units would be spread out. So is there another scenario that in terms of the layout of units that would bring this cost down in any significant way, or it would be marginal changes?
So I think it's a good question. It's fair to, well, the reason I did it spread out was because I wanted to make sure the system was going to function hydraulically, right? So that's the worst case scenario. It also ends up being the worst case scenario for costs, right? So it's pretty linear. So if your development becomes more compact and or a shorter distance from the street, then obviously the net costs are going to go down. One of the reasons why we just tried to spin up some rough numbers and some rough unit cost. And the word connection is rough. I guess I'd say per grinder pump, because I'm trying to assume worst case scenarios. I can't really speak to what the development's going to look like, 2-3 bedrooms per unit. I don't know, but from grinder pumps, I think 10 and 30 is a worst case. The unit cost that we kind of just did the math, total divided by, grinder pumps, is something that we'll do on municipal projects all the time. And you're hoping you see costs that are in that like $25,000 to $50,000 range for wastewater. And then you can start feeling a little better about, oh, this is in the ballpark of what a septic system might cost. Here, I think it's pretty clear to anyone who looked at it that, the costs per unit are higher than you would want it to be, whether you are a resident, a developer, or whatever. So while the capacity exists, there are challenging financial logistics with the wastewater infrastructure itself.
So the estimate you gave just now is somewhere between 25 and 50,000 would be normal costs for a septic system.
Well, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think you'd be hard pressed to find a septic system today less than 25. But I think you could spend 50 if you had a really tough lot and you needed to do a lot of landscaping and retaining walls. So ballpark again.
Okay. My second question is for the $1.4 million here is, if I understand what you said, those are all costs related to what would be on the subject property and not affected by whether there would be 56 other units or 28. So the difference between how many other units would be connecting has no effect whatsoever on the $1.4 million. Am I right about that?
I think so, because I think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the cost for whoever we might get to develop the property. The additional 28 connections for grinder pumps for the existing 28 homeowners would be their expense, not expense for the development.
That was an assumption in our financial model, yes, that the ADUs that might happen organically at people's individual properties would be borne by themselves down the road.
Let's just address the ADU thing for a second, because I think that it's important that we not spin these meetings. Great Barrington and Lenox both did very aggressive promotions around their ADU bylaws in the last 5 or 10 years. Both of them did very permissive ADU bylaws. And I think Great Barrington had like 15 ADUs in 5 years and Lenox had 10. And between the two of them, they have about 10,000 houses. So the idea that we're going to do like an ADU for every single house on Glendale Middle Road, it ain't ever going to happen. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't plan for a couple if people want to spend $200,000-300,000 putting it in. But there, we have data around ADUs that isn't really supporting the idea that every single place in town is going to put one in. I mean, this isn't new. A lot of towns have been promoting these for years with local municipal bylaws. The ADU change is only at the state level, but those towns have already put them in place. So
this is a maximum worst case kind of thing.
Right, but the thing to focus on is that in 2A, the 1.4 million is for the 66 additional connections for a development of 10 two-bedroom parcels. And and 2B, the almost $2 million cost is for the 86 30-unit two bedrooms, and has really nothing to do with the column that has 28 and 56 in it. That's all existing homes and any expense that the existing homes might wish to pay to add an ADU on it. It really has nothing to do with any development that we would have. The issue for any development we would have is the second column from the left and the second column and the four bottom pieces, or the two middle pieces, and the second column from the right.
Yep.
It seems to me, and Dave, the significance of your findings that we didn't clearly, at least I speak for myself, didn't clearly understand, is that the town has capacity for us to add a development on our parcel if we so choose and other factors work.
That is my opinion, yes. Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
All right, come up.
No.
Elmise?
Peter Berinsky. This might be more of a question, might be for you. It was my understanding when the sewer went in, because we asked the questions way back when the sewer was going about capacity, future, lots and everything. And I believe we were told, and this is why I was a little shocked with the capacity that is being shown, not with the pump station, but with the line going down the street itself, was that we were very close to the capacity. Like, some of the lots that weren't developed, there was a question, well, I don't know if they're gonna be developed. We do have building lots and properties that can be divided that I didn't see on the chart. There is a septic system on the street that will someday go to sewer because septic systems don't last forever.
Talking about capacity overall.
But I was surprised with the capacity with the line that went down the street, with all of this. That you're acting or presenting that, it's not an issue.
It's not, I mean, relative to the capacity of the pipe, I mean, pipes themselves, right, kind of have
And
limited
that's
capacity.
And that's the 3-inch.
Yeah, so we attached the models in there, which shows the pressure at every grinder pump. In your defense, I can't speak to lots that are currently undeveloped. They may have a pump in a different location, but Mr. Campetti from the sewer department provided us with tie cards for every property.
Yep.
We, I think kind of went over the top in terms of building a hydraulic
No.
model.
The
To make
drawings
sure,
look
we
great.
didn't want to be able to come up here and say, well, it could be okay, maybe it's okay. We
Yeah.
want to be able to be definitive. And your question at the last meeting about preserving interests for the existing system was taken into account. So I can't speak if the sewer was extended 2,000 feet down the road. I don't know.
Well, I don't think it was gonna be expanded. It was for the basic plan that was put in. I just remember that being said, whether it was right or not, I don't know. Just a small comment with the auxiliary housing. I don't think we're looking, and we can't be just like blinders on that, how many auxiliary houses or new buildings are gonna be put on.
I'm sorry.
Accessory.
It's hard.
Accessory
It's hard to hear, Peter. And please, I hope you'll come up and share with us your thoughts.
Are gonna be put on in the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, potentially the sewer, I hope lasts forever. I mean, life expectancy of the sewer, I hope is 50 to 100 years.
Yeah, typically.
Yeah.
Not the
So we're
pumps
looking at
themselves, but
future generate, yeah, we know about the pumps.
That's what I'll
So future generations
Concede your point.
and future buyers that are, who knows what they're gonna do with the properties or what new laws will come up. So I just wanted to adjust those.
I mean, just on the question of capacity though, and I'm sure Don could speak to this. I mean, we got an extensive analysis in that 350-page system filing about sewer capacity and that's like, 150 units plus 20 private homes and not even getting close to capacity. So we have a lot of
I'm
capacity.
just referring to a 3-inch line going
Yeah.
under the railroad and across the river.
right.
Mhm.
And we did model it just anecdotally under the assumption that all existing and proposed pumps are the standard E1 pumps, which only have the pressure of 138. So I mean, realistically, I think some have already been replaced with the E1 extremes, the 185 feet. So over time, presumably any new ones would be those. And then as your properties are, pumping units are replaced, I don't even think you can get the old ones anymore. So that provides another factor of safety, if you will, on system performance.
Comment?
My takeaway on this in part is that on the scenario 2B, I don't see any of us being, or the majority of us anyway, being supportive of doing 30 units. So I'm really more focused on 2A. And the problem I see on that is even though there's capacity, according to your study, getting this 140,000 a unit down in the range of 50,000, a third of this is probably unlikely, even with a very tightly compacted 10 units in there. I think it would be a challenge to get it into an economically feasible zone.
I have a comment. in
Am I
addition to
wrong
that.
on that? Is that
Well,
not?
I think you're right. I think you're right, but I think in addition to the cost per unit for the sewer, we have to get water in there,
Exactly.
power, cable,
A road.
road, tree clearing. The
Right.
cost per unit for all of the infrastructure involved before you can think about putting up a building may very well be prohibitive to take away all the advantage of getting the free land.
Yeah.
Another
Well,
way.
if we don't put water in, we don't have to worry about sewer.
There's not
Like
water,
rainwater, huh?
Yeah.
plenty of water on that property.
Can we just include a pot for them to boil it?
Pretty much.
Exactly.
Dig a hole, 12 inches, you'll have water.
The other, another way to think about it, the development of these costs, the pre-develop, are typically called the pre-development costs. And trying to get the pre-development costs in a range with the developer, so that a developer would be interested in the project, because this group is not going, we are not developers and would not be actually building the project. I see our role as producing the kind of information that you gave us, which is
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic and surprising that there's capacity for sewer in the road, and what we have to cover is the installation of utilities. And the one way to think about it is that you need to collect what the pre-development costs are, the total, and that's water, clearing roads. There were some issues about roads and the culverts. We talked about that. But once you get a pro forma of all of the costs, you're not going to be able to cover all of them out of the development, particularly with affordable housing kinds of budgets. But that's what you have to cover out of the total is what we would have to raise in fundraising. And so I think you need, I believe, we've been given the land, we've been given the challenge of figuring out what can be done there. And we need to get the rest of the costs together and get a plan that can actually be costed. So we could test about, excuse me, I just got one of these.
But
Anyway,
Brandy, are you suggesting we go through a similar process on all the other costs, which would cost us maybe tens of thousands of
What
dollars?
are you gonna do with the water? Are you gonna, next phase, you're gonna do a water study? I would assume that that'd be the next step.
right. Exactly.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
We
support
have, I think
doing a
we have
water
to
study
discuss
right now.
this.
I think we should focus our energies on, first of all, before we even talk about spending another Nicola's Trust money, I think we need to have the conversation I suggested at the last meeting around how we're going to prioritize our various options in town. Because I got to tell you, residential building on undersized lots and Pine Street and maybe something in Heaton Court, if we could figure it out, make a whole lot more sense to me maybe than this does in the uncertainty we face. But I want to have that conversation as a board. And then if the board decides that this is the top priority, I could see spending more money on it. But if that's not the top priority, I want to reserve our resources for, what are the identified top priorities. So, I think we have to have the first conversation before we even think about spending any more on the rest of this.
Is that a discussion we can have now?
Well, no, it's on the agenda. It's going to be on the next agenda.
For next.
Yeah, the next
I
agenda.
would suggest we put on the agenda
Right.
whether we already know enough to take a vote on whether to proceed with this.
Yeah.
Um,
You want to do that now or in the next one?
Well, I don't know
Can
the
we?
rules of whether we can or not. I have the sense that Jan is concerned about these numbers, that Liz is, that you are, that I am. I'm not sure where Bruce is on this, but it's just to me shaping up as the cost per unit for quote unquote affordable or workforce housing. If you were building a $3 million mansion up there, this wouldn't matter, but we're trying to get housing in there that people can afford who work in the area or are qualifying for low income affordable housing. And the more of these costs you pile on to that, the more it strikes me that there's no way to come to a bottom line that creates affordable housing. That's the way it's looking to me. And I don't know if other people agree. We at some point maybe have to make a decision whether to cut off this and pursue other matters.
And this informs also even the discussion around what to do with the threat of litigation letter that we got. I mean, if we're not doing it,
Then there's.
I don't know that we should, I mean, a friend of mine told me an example of who got a letter like that, and the lawyer said he had a good case, but they were costing $25,000 to defend it.
Costs a lot when you want to go to land court, that's for sure.
No, I just-
For both.
I don't know. I just feel like kind of we should maybe punt this decision until after we have the bigger, what are we going to do? What are we going to advocate for? And then, I don't know.
I
I'll
think
let you decide now.
It's part
Well,
of,
my feeling about this is that we need to think about and have confidence about something that Rani was starting to address, which is what do we think is the likelihood and how much do we think there's a likelihood that we will get a substantial amount of money in pre-development costs to make this a viable project, as Mark was indicating, that would work for workforce housing, fall into the realm of affordable housing that we think, the pricing that we think affordable housing needs to have. Because if in fact we're starting out, I mean, let's take 2A, for example. If we're starting out just for sewer with over $140,000 and water comes in at somewhere, even, remotely close to the 1.4 million for the total project for 10 units. And then we have on top of it all the clearing and tree work and other utilities and culverts and so on and so forth that need to be there. The pre-development costs are going to be exceeding $300,000 to $350,000 out of the gate. And then on top of that, the construction costs, you're basically, unless we're confident that we have a great likelihood of getting a very sizable amount of money in pre-development costs to offset that, you're going to be talking about a home that's can't cost less than $500,000 or $600,000. That doesn't fit in the realm.
Way more.
Way more than
It'd
that.
be more like $1 million
More,
each.
I mean, I said can't cost less than that.
Yeah.
And probably is going to cost closer to $900,000 to $1 million.
Yeah,
And
that's
that is out of the realm of affordable housing. So
Low-end
it's
housing
really
now.
a function of whether we think that there's going to be very substantial pre-development costs that someone else is going to pay for through grants or whatever. And I don't know. I don't have much confidence in that,
Bruce,
particularly when I see what's going on with the federal government cutting back to states.
Well, that's true. But I do think that if we're looking for money and we're trying to spend it wisely, that we take it and we put it in places that have water and sewer, that we're in town where we see there are possibilities to do it. Let's go that way.
Yeah, Bruce, I would say, and well put what you just laid out. I would say, and I'll admit I don't have experience in applying for these kind of grants, but they would review this very carefully and look at the cost per unit for these site preparation and infrastructure things. And I suspect they would look at it the way we are, which is very skeptically. These guys want to create affordable housing, and yet they're coming in with a couple $100,000 or $250,000 per unit just to get to the building site before anybody put a shovel in the ground. I don't think we'd have much of a chance to get those grants, and I don't think it would be a good use of the state's money, frankly.
Yeah, okay.
one of the things that you may not be aware of or not focused on is that no matter what we do, there will be a $200,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 difference between what the unit costs and what you can sell it for. That's the nature of the game. And that money, the way you make that money right now, if you're in the affordable housing business, is you sell tax credits. And that's what tax credits are used for, is to fill that gap. And it's not surprising that you would have $200,000 or $300,000 of a gap between what you can sell it for.
You say selling, you're talking about homeownership?
Yeah,
Yeah. I see the gap as 100% AMI is for family of four is less than $100,000. The 3X rule means they can afford a $300,000 mortgage, and that is if they're at 100% area median income is AMI. Okay, we're talking about 800, 900,000, a million a unit. The gap isn't 200 or 300,000. The gap is 700,000.
but we have to figure out really where we're focused. What does our town need? Does our town need low-income housing with the average median income? With that, are we trying to build housing for that low?
That's not what we're talking about. I mean, that's not the homeownership model. That's the 40 or 60% rental AMI model.
Right. Well, I don't think this particular site is appropriate for rental.
I don't either. So,
It's appropriate for home ownership,
but
which is what we need in my opinion, in our community.
I'm not sure we all agree on that. I've never agreed with that because I've always been for rental from the very beginning.
Okay,
And I
well,
keep-
in this location,
No, I just mean that we need rentals. In this location, I'm pretty not sold on this location anymore. Everything I read in the paper, all the people I talk to, if you look on Facebook, just Facebook, and they're all going, "Oh my God, there's a place for, $1,000. Thank you, for rent." And granted, it's a very small studio with a short ceiling, but it has water, it has heat, everything's paid for. And people are desperate for these rentals.
but I think that if that is our target, if you feel that's where we should be, which is what you're asking for, Patrick, is the discussion, and Mark also, and Jan and Bruce, about what is the product that we feel is most needed, that we should try to
the
target.
next meeting.
But I think.
What I will say is, I don't think that what I see as what is most needed is homes that are basically going to have $300,000 or $350,000 in pre-development costs. That even if you get a tax credit for $200,000, drops that down to $100,000 or $150,000 before they put the first shovel in the ground, which means that even after that $200,000 credit, you're still going to be talking about a home that's going to cost $350,000, $400,000. And I don't think that fits in with, I don't really think that fits in with the affordable housing model that we're pursuing. I think it's still going to be too much.
Bruce, we don't really, I think that's what the next discussion is about, that this is surfaced, is what do the trust members feel is the most important target? And you remember, we didn't pay for any land for this. When you go and add pre-development costs, design, engineering, and land into any other, I think it would be very useful for everyone to see what a comparable project or another project that we might be able to pursue. And we're talked about a few. When you cost those out, my feeling is you're not going to be very different.
Well, it's just the place, the reason that I see some opportunity for it to be different is that this particular parcel, given the neighborhood and so on and so forth, does not really lend itself to a significant development with large numbers of units. And there may be other properties for which we will have to pay
Yeah.
$600,000, $700,000, $800,000 that will make it very much easier to put on 30, 40, 50 units, whether they're in cluster housing or multifamily or whatever. And that will basically erode the additional pre-development cost of having to pay for the land. I mean, when we're talking about 10 or even 30 units here, I mean, that in some respects kind of mitigates for me only 10. If we're putting in only 10 units, that mitigates for me the fact that the land was given to us, because you're really not going to make up for the free land because by only building 10 units.
Right.
Can I make a sort of related point? This is a 30-second setup, all right? I live over on Hawthorne Street. Behind me, the town owns 34 acres of land, which is about a half a mile of shoreline on Lily Pond, all right? And there's no public access to that land. And there used to be, my dad was the last manager of the private water company that used to do water the whole neighborhood from Wheatley on. And then that failed in 1975. But everybody who wanted to go fishing on Lily Pond or ice fishing or whatever would walk down that right away to that private water company. And everybody just knew they could go fishing on Lily Pond. And now they can't because they have cameras up and the private owner of that property got rid of that access. And it really bugs me that a 40-acre public pond that the town owns, people can't get to it. So if you know what happens to this property if we don't build on it, it becomes public property that is open space. And I'm just letting you guys know where I stand on this. I will fight and fight and fight to make sure that if we're going to convert this to public space, that the public has access to it. Now, I'm not that familiar with your neighborhood as I am with mine, but there has to be a way to get to this property. And I don't care if we have to give it up for adverse possession and then take it back from eminent domain. If the compromise here is that becomes open space, the public better have access to it. So I'm just letting you guys know that that's stake in the ground issue for me.
So does that mean that you're in favor of moving forward with the development or not?
No, that wasn't, that had to do with if it's open space.
All right, so it's just a
It's not going to be a little private park for the butters, is what I'm saying.
a parallel discussion is what you're.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I had them all in the room and I wanted to just make sure.
So we got to remember, Stockbridge has a lot of open space.
Just give it
Yeah,
back
but-
nine first, so it's back on the tax rolls.
You can't, it was never on the tax rolls. It was chapter 61.
Doesn't matter. Something better than nothing.
He gave it.
We've already got much land in Stockbridge that's off the tax rolls.
Didn't you?
Can you please stand up and say who's speaking? I don't know who's speaking. And I would
Yes,
like to
Yes, come on
understand.
up to the
Could
podium.
you, anyone, we really haven't heard anything about your questions or comments about the sewer study, which is what this meeting is about.
Well, we were just talking, about being open space. If this development doesn't go through Bill Markham, Glendale Middle Road. If you decide not to do this development, then give it back to Hans. Doesn't matter if it's under chapter 61, at least he's paying something. He's paying 10% of his taxes. Anytime there's a timber sale, percentage of that timber sale goes back to the town in lieu of his taxes. It's better than nothing.
I just don't know if the agreement allows that.
I think.
A point of information. Have we not ventured into something that's really not part of the agenda, that doesn't fit within the 48-hour rule? When we're starting to talk about what alternatives there would be to use of this land. This was supposed to be, the discussion on the agenda was about the sewer system, not on an alternative use of the land if we choose not to develop it.
Okay, we can put that on the meeting schedule.
Well, this is what Patrick brought.
I know, I brought it up. I apologize.
I'm just answering what he brought up.
Right.
That's all.
But
It threatened to take our land by eminent domain, so he can get.
I'm not doing anything. The threat is for adverse possession against the town right now.
Okay, can we move on?
Does
Yeah, that's-
anyone, yes, thank you. We will. We have residents of Glendale Middle Road here. We have a very very comprehensive study of sewer. And this land that we now own, the trust, has full access to public sewer. And that's new information that we did not know about before. And that is a very big plus for this property. We also now have information, preliminary information, because we don't have a site plan or a site concept plan to cost out what it really would. And I think, I not speak for you, Dave, but you did a very, very conservative analysis of what it would cost.
Correct.
And until we have a real site plan, a real design concept plan for what is logically should be done here, we don't really know those numbers.
That's correct.
So, but I really wanted to hear, we were hoping you're all here. Don, you're part of the town. Do you have any questions about the work? I mean, I hope you've had a chance.
You have the answer, because even in the Water and Sewer Commission, we didn't know, we needed an engineer, and I think we talked to Bruce about that also, is that we needed an engineer to tell us and you if that line, that 3-inch line, was capable of handling it. Now you have one step going further now. Yes, it is. So that's one checklist that you have moving forward with this. You have a lot of other things to do. Obviously,
Right.
We were talking about, and it's been talked about 4 times tonight, the water issue, and then the road and utilities. You're looking at, and we're sitting here, you're talking about affordable housing, and the costs are exorbitant. I mean, you're talking millions and millions here. I mean, that's a lot of money. And, but you've got to start. So we also know in the Water and Sewer Commission that that's available also. We have the capacity for sure. We knew that anyway.
Oh, you knew you had the capacity.
We knew we had the capacity at the plant.
Yeah.
And the pump station could handle it.
I see,
We knew all of that.
but you didn't know
No. we
this
didn't know.
particular line.
And Dave did a great job on it.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive.
Yes, he did.
You did
Did a
a
wonderful job.
absolutely fantastic job. So,
Well, it's good to know that if we don't pursue this, you have new information that may be of some use to the Water Sewer
That's
Commission.
exactly right.
Amen.
We worked with Dave on several projects.
very good. Yes, Peter.
Peter Bernstein, Linda Monroe. How are all of the lines, you said separate lines for each unit. Is that gonna come down, and then is there gonna be like a manifold at the road, or each sewer pump's line gonna tie in individually with check valves to the main line?
So there's one line coming off the street, and there is a figure in the back. You'd find it. I don't know if I'd dig through and find it on the spot, but we had it kind of going off into 4 branches. And then on each branch, there were individual lateral lines. So it's like 4 ladders. And of course, every lateral has a grinder pump with a check valve curb stop. But the hope there was that layout would represent like a worst case scenario. I don't think you'd be able to develop things kind of that choppy. There'd be like culverts galore and, bridges and stuff to try to group the little hills together. But yeah, did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
That's another question that I had is, drainage is a big concern of mine, which I'm sure will be a study down the road also, because there's drainage on the street. With the low pressure lines that you have coming off in your plan, are those similar to what we have in our yards in the respect of, you put stone in the bottom, but the wet soil won't really affect the operation or the buoyancy of anything?
No, I mean, it's the same pipe. It's either HDP or PVC, same as you have. We worry about that a lot when we're on gravity sewers because of the infiltration, but here we're under pressure.
Okay.
So it's less of a concern. The cost of excavation for rock and groundwater, for sure, we tried to, we don't have soil borings and things like that, but we try to account for those provisions. It's not easy For those that live in the neighborhood, I'm sure you put a shovel in the ground and you pick up a bunch of potatoes. So
And that's the nice thing about with the conservative quote here, is we're full of clay and water. And it was an issue, I know when I did mine, that we had to put in extra.
why you don't have a
stone to
septic
dig it out
system
later.
anymore.
Exactly. A septic system, like I was quoting it for my house, was more like $80,000. So it was not even an issue to build the house. I was actually in a similar situation. Had to get some ideas. No, I think those were my questions concerning that. I think it's good.
Thank you.
And it was a nice plan. You did a pretty detailed job, and I like how you didn't assume that everybody had the new pumps, because a lot of the people that, to date, they offered a rebuild
A
program.
refurb,
So
yeah.
I think a lot of people's that they have even currently are probably like the originals. Some people that bought new ones do have the newer one.
Thanks for your questions, Peter.
Yes, thank you. Don, I keep going to you since I know it's your, it's a special interest because of your service to the community, but do you have any other questions for Dave?
No.
Any?
Can I make a suggestion? I think that based on what we've seen here and also what we're projecting as potential expenses, that we consider at the next meeting having an up or down vote on whether to continue to pursue this property with any further studies or expensive of money that
I have that already in the agenda.
okay.
Oh, good.
We
You're
talked
taking
about-
over the
we talked-
agenda.
No, we talked about it earlier in my notes, that's all.
All right, so
Let's take a vote
it's just
on
a
it.
suggestion for the next agenda, because I think we've kind of reached a point where I think there might be a consensus on this group as to how to proceed or not proceed. But I think, the announcement that we're going to take a formal vote on the agenda, giving ample notice to interested parties to have a come in, and we could have a discussion literally about up or down, yes or no.
It's more complicated than up or down though, because we
Yeah.
have really three issues here. One is it a down with the table, which means we could do it sometime in the future? Or is it a down with we're turning it over to the town as the agreement with Hans requires? Or is it a up or down based on whether or not the adverse possession claim, basically we've brought on the land claim that is up against us now, is valid because there's no entrance to the property without that.
Well,
So I think that frankly,
I
if we're
thought
going to
we
turn it over to the
couldn't
town,
talk
that's a whole different thing.
I thought we couldn't talk about the letter that we
Oh, who cares
received.
at this point?
All right.
No, we
Well, let me
do.
just say, I don't know that in the meeting, in the discussion I'm envisioning, we have to cover all that ground. I think as a board, we could decide, okay, we've spent this amount to see what's buildable and this amount on the sewer. We're seeing some pretty big numbers here. Do we want to even continue? And we could say we're not for now continuing to pursue this, if that's what the board agrees to, without answering all those things immediately. I mean, in time, we could answer those. If we decided not to pursue it, we'd have to see whether the adverse possession argument even continued.
I would think it would be irrelevant.
Well,
I mean-
not necessarily.
No.
Somebody, there could be an interest in the future and making sure they secure the land to whatever might happen down the road. So that would be up to the individuals involved in that.
This is, just to interrupt you a little bit, it's not a simple up and down vote.
Mhm.
It's actually quite a complicated one. And I think
Well,
if
discuss
we, and discussing it is, I think, an excellent idea. But one of the things that is perhaps hard for everyone to understand is the cost on this property may look very, very desirable if you knew the costs of any of the other things we've looked at.
I can't imagine the costs on this property are desirable to anybody.
Well, I would disagree. I think you would find, as we look into even Pine Street, the sale price is $2 million. And you can get maybe 10 units there.
Yeah, and that's 200,000 a unit, which is like just a little bit more than just a connection cost for sewer here.
That,
It's got water, it's got sewer, it's got parking, it's got everything.
You can walk it down.
Just saying.
Come to town, take the bus.
I think, certainly,
You have.
I don't think these costs are as out of line as
I
you
think
may.
you're the only one who doesn't think these costs are not out of line.
I may,
Look,
Just
I'm-
be-
I may be, because I've
Just-
worked on bigger projects, but
Just to simplify this, I would be happy to support, personally, I'm speaking for myself, turn it over to the town as the agreement provides. I would like to see a removal of the threat of litigation against the town. That's my personal position. I apologize for being a little bit self-righteous before. I just had a bad experience as a kid with these issues and, and it's not to say you don't have the right to pursue them, but, I just, that, if we're going to resolve this, that's kind of, I can see us basically moving on to what I think are more realistic opportunities, but,
So can I jump in for a second? I think we have very rough estimates that I seem to remember we had before about what the water might cost, what the street costs might be. And I'd be happy to put together a rough estimate of those, collect that and put it together. So that at our next meeting, we have a rough idea if we were going to build 10 units, because I don't think there's support to build a whole lot of, there certainly isn't support, I don't think, to build 30 units. So if we could just look at that, then we could have a really clear understanding of what the likelihood is of what the cost might be and feel comfortable saying we either want to table this for the time being and pursue other things, or, we're done entirely. And I don't know which that would be, but I would suggest we wait until the next meeting for that and try to pull together those costs so we have a clear picture of what the likelihood is if we were to develop 10 units. And I think it's going to show that it's very high. But
Jen,
I
how
could be
about,
wrong.
how about a slightly different approach? And thank you for offering to do this, and we accept. Because you're very much the person in our group who is qualified to put the numbers together. And we do have, and I want to say that this is one of the best groups I've ever worked on. We have a really rich amount of talent on this board that has been thorough and very professional. But the discussion about priorities and what these costs might be, what I suggest is to put together the information that we have, Jan, and we have this sewer study, which is very useful. We have some and Bruce, because I can't see you, Bruce. Why don't we take that down so we can see Bruce?
We have preliminary estimates about water, which is in the realm of $700,000 to $750,000.
Right.
That's just putting pipe in the ground. You have to have fire protection up there. There's not fire protection on that street right now. So you have to do something. You have to do collection with a pump station. No one is going to let you do any kind of building up there and getting any kind of state and federal grants unless you have fire protection. That line that we have now is not, you don't have enough volume for that development.
As I understand,
You are absolutely correct. That is basically just to add water, potable water, for the people that will be living there. It is unlikely to basically also allow for fire protection.
Okay.
Some preliminary discussion I had with Mike.
I'm going to cut you off, Bruce. Excuse me, but I'm going to cut you off. Jan.
I've been cut off, but
you've been cut off before. Thank you. First of all, thank you, because you've done a tremendous yeoman's task working with David, and we're very grateful. Thank you. But Jan, I think to move forward, we ought to collect what information we have, and Bruce has additional information. Michael Canales has some additional information because he builds roads. Sounds like Don has some additional information. If you have the time to pull that together in one place, I think that would aid a very sensible discussion about
Yes.
what we might do next with the property.
Okay.
And there are all kinds of options.
So
But
I
it-
would make a motion that we table this discussion for our next meeting. So I table it definitively for whenever we schedule the next meeting, and that we accept Jan's offer. And I will work with her to provide whatever additional information I may have gleaned in the time that I've been dealing with these utility issues. And we'll basically provide that information, and we can have a robust discussion and take a vote on how to best to proceed. That's a motion.
That's a
second
motion. How about a second? Who's seconding?
I second it.
Jan seconding. Okay. Let's have a little bit of discussion about this. If there is no other discussion that you want to have about the property today, about the sewer, then I'd like to entertain this motion. Is everybody in favor?
Can you just
vote?
repeat the motion
It's lengthy, but basically we accept Jan's offer
to help out?
to present what financial data we have to date for our discussion at the next meeting, which will focus on our various opinions about what to do next with the property that we've been given.
I prefer to have the discussion first about what our priorities are, but it's up to you.
That will be part.
Maybe it's the
won't that be
same
part
man,
of
maybe
the
it's that.
discussion.
Yeah.
Well, it can be part of.
I think that'll be part of the discussion, Patrick.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have the numbers that Jan provides for us, and we'll have a discussion about what we think we want to do with this property.
Okay. Good. So
Perhaps, Jan, if we impose on your offer, why don't we try to put whatever numbers we have about the other projects that we're considering on that sheet? And all of us, hopefully all of us will be able to contribute.
Well, I don't want to make a commitment to that because I'm not sure I know all the numbers of the other projects we're considering, but I'll do my best to provide
Well,
whatever.
we don't have a lot, so
Yeah.
we do have some. And I think we can be definitive about at least the things we're considering.
Yeah.
So the motion, I will condense it to, we will continue our discussion about this property and our other properties that we're considering, and hopefully develop a priority.
Right, but we don't need to, you're the chair. You have the prerogative of doing the agenda is up to you. Just put it on the next agenda. That's, yeah, but if you want us to vote on it, yeah, sure.
Well, Bruce made a
All
motion.
right, so I, Patrick.
Bruce, do you want it voted on, or do you want to,
I would like would like to push this discussion forward. So I would like very much for us to vote on seeing what Jan puts together with input from the rest of us on the trust, and have a discussion about whether we think that this is a viable project to pursue. And alongside that, we can talk about what other options there may be.
so we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. All in favor? Jan?
Aye.
Bruce?
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rennie.
Hi, Liz.
Sounds like everyone who's here is in favor. I believe, unless anybody else, but I hope the people from Glendale Middle Road feel they've had the opportunity to ask whatever questions, get whatever information they wanted from coming here, have done that. Because the one thing that's important to me is that we are very open in these discussions. And we will, as you can see, we have a variety of opinions on this board. So
That's a good thing.
all those, which is a very good thing. Next meeting. Oh, yeah, sure.
Mark had said that he was hoping next week or at the next meeting to have a, yes, we're gonna be doing this, or no, we're putting it to bed.
I
Is
know
that
you
what's
dream
gonna
about
happen?
that. No,
I dream about that every minute of the day.
I know you do. I'm
So-
sorry.
So, Mark, because it wasn't put in a motion, it's.
I didn't make a motion for it, and I'm not sure what the right procedure would be. Patrick raised some questions about it may be more complicated than just an up or down, yes or no. But I think at that next meeting, you'll get a very clear consensus of where the board is headed. And
At this time.
yeah, at this time, and I won't characterize it, but I'll just say that I think the discussion will be very useful for the residents of that street.
Good. But no, I want to answer your question is if you live in hope that we're going to vote, we really don't have. It's very much more complex about what we're going to do. And we don't have to do anything. We own it. It's our land and we can wait.
Well, I think I would suggest that we want to settle this for the neighbors so that they don't have this thing hanging over them.
Yep.
If we reach that point, so I would like us to, in whatever the proper legal form would be, to make our statement very clear as to this board's intentions. And I know there are complexities around, okay, what happens to the land if we don't pursue this, and how do we get open access to it?
5 years.
There's a lot of points that we may not get to in that next discussion, but I would say that the main point would be to come to some conclusion about whether we want to pursue anything further with it. And that I think would be helpful to the residents there to know what the consensus of the board is.
Agreed. We're going to pick a date for the next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Who can be here?
Well, we need a date.
Yeah, we need a date.
Do we want it in a week? Do we want it in 2 weeks? Let's get it done quickly.
We'll get, Jan, how much time do you need?
You tell me when you want to do it and I will try to be there in person, but if I can't, I'll be on Zoom.
Okay. No, but how much time do you
Need
need
to prepare.
to
Oh,
prepare?
I think I could even do it next week sometime.
Okay.
A meeting, I mean, if you wanted.
I think we should look at the week of the 10th.
That's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Well, it's a week and a half, a week and a half. Yeah.
You want to do the 10th?
Are we gonna deal with the legal issue before then, or not deal with it?
That's a day that I can't come.
The 10th.
It's my birthday.
Oh,
Happy birthday. 11th, 12th, 13th.
My children
it
are,
depends what rooms are open too.
well,
Thursday, the 13th would be good because,
It's,
oh, no, is that
that's a big
Select
meeting for
board?
you. Is it the 13th or no? No, the 6th. Is that the select board, the 13th?
I think that the select board is.
16th, wasn't it?
16th
No,
is Sunday?
You meet on Thursday.
27th is Jimmy's on, 27th is the Sisto, and then we're also meeting on the 6th and the 20th, right? So, but that's not till 6:30, so.
So the 13th would be okay.
The 13th?
Yeah,
Looks well.
13th works for me.
yes,
Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
All right. 13th.
Okay,
At 4:30.
Everybody wants to meet at 4:30?
yes.
the hard stop at 6:30, because I have an open house for my job, my actual job, at 7:00.
Good enough. Okay,
I don't have
13th.
time for an actual job, Patrick.
That's right.
It's called weekends and nights.
Okay.
All right, so the February 13 at 4:30.
February 13th. We need to find out about Michaela.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll
may I
call her.
just say, Dave, thank you so much for coming tonight and
Yes.
thank you for your excellent report.
Thanks for the opportunity to work with you.
Yes,
Really?
thanks so much, Dave.
Yes.
Very, very comprehensive and very useful.
Yes, very, very
Thank you,
useful
everyone.
to
Motion
us.
adjourned.
Good job.
Okay, motion, second.
Bye, Patrick.
All those in
Bye,
favor?
everyone.
Aye.
I
We are adjourned.